Good morning. Sheila here again. I hope you're doing well. I promised a class for the knees, and so I have lots of notes to offer to you this morning, and I couldn't remember it all in my brain today. So I hope you don't mind me sharing some information from my notes. You might want to take a comfortable seat, whatever that is for you. It could be in a chair if you would like. It could be on a block. In Virasana, you could just sit Sukhasana, just a way that is good and comfortable for you. So I kind of call this snap, crackle, pop, because sometimes when you're going up and down the stairs here in the studio, you can hear knees pop. So I thought, well, snap, crackle, pop for the knees class today. So when we're working with the knees, sometimes the issue not only it doesn't start necessarily in the knee unless it's coming from an injury. It can come from below or it can come from above. And so we look at the neighbors of the knees. So that would be the feet and the ankle as well as the hips. Why knee pain? It could come from just a various of different things, possibly wearing high heel shoes to work every day, keeping the calf muscles engaged. The IT band that runs along the side of the leg could be tight from overuse, or just the outer quadricep muscle being tight. This is the vastus lateralis, and then the vastus medialis along the inside of the leg would be weak. ACL injuries to the knee, so it's the anterior cruciate ligament that could, from an injury. Poor ankle mobility, so if we can't plantar flex and dorsiflex and even rotate the ankle, that can create issues within the knee. Osteoarthritis, just where the cartilage begins to wear away and you end up with bone on bone. Meniscus tears causing knee pain, patellar tendonitis, even a Baker cyst that forms behind the knee, a fluid-filled sac behind the knee. I've had several students that have had that going on, and I'm sure there are other things that create knee pain in the body, but I did want to give you a few of the reasons for knee pain. Number one reason, I think, is just misalignment of the knee. The outer muscles of the thigh stronger than the inner thigh. So let's take a moment to look at the foot. The foot has a medial longitudinal arch and a lateral longitudinal arch, and then the transverse arch across the front, or you can tell more about it across the bottom. And then when all of these arches are engaged, you have what's called the central arch. But the medial and the lateral and the transverse have to be created in order to have that central arch. And in yoga, we work with grounding the 4 points of the foot down. So I'll just put my foot out here for you. So the big toe mound, the little toe mound, the inner heel, and the outer heel. And then even there are times that we lift the toes away from the mat to create that medial arch. So in all of our standing poses and even our seated postures, we need to pay quite a bit of attention to what our feet are doing in the postures. Have I collapsed on the back side of the foot? Am I lifting my arch on the front side of the foot? So in yoga, there's the practice of svadhyaya, self-study, and every asana is an opportunity for self-study. So questions that you could ask yourself throughout your practice are, where am I pouring the weight of my body? Do I have the weight more into the outer heel, or do I have the weight more into the inner heel, or am I evenly distributing that weight? Am I grounding through the big toe mounds of both feet, or am I slightly shifting to the pinky toe side of the foot? So in a lot of our classes, when we begin, we'll start with a few openers, but we usually end up in staff pose, Dandasana. And if you just slide your legs out to straight, your kneecap is designed to slide and glide. So you can take your fingers and gently move it back and forth from side to side. And when we teach the engagement of the thighs to lift the kneecaps, that will help to pull the kneecap in better alignment. So look down at your legs and watch your knees. You might even need to pull your pants leg up a little bit so you can watch what happens. You know, just looking at your knees with your legs extended out, where do they tend to track? The 4 points of the knees. So you got the upper, the medial, the outer, and then just below. So how do yours tend to track? So I'm going to use my fingertips to the floor and engage my quadriceps and watch my kneecaps draw up. And then release it, watch them fall back down. And then engage the quadriceps, watch your kneecaps draw up and into place. So this is crucial in our standing postures. And then release. But for me, it was the easiest for me to learn to really lift and engage my kneecaps and thighs from sitting. It seems like when I stood up to do a standing pose, somewhere that information went right out the door. Let's try a couple of more. And release. So I talked a little bit before about the outer quadricep, the vastus lateralis. That one tends to be stronger, and the vastus medialis is the one that gets underused and is usually weaker. So we need to learn to properly engage this part of the muscle for better alignment. I think that's all I wanted to share as far as that goes. I have with me today a pool noodle with a dowel rod in it. Some of you have used this with me at the studio before. Some of the work can be intense, however you get to work at your level of practice. And I also have with me, where'd it go? I had a tennis ball somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. There it is. I'll get it in just a moment. We'll use the tennis ball a little later on as well. And a strap. And if you have a couple of blankets for towards the end of the practice, that would be great. And if you don't have blankets, then beach towels are wonderful. So I'd like for us to go ahead and start the sequence. And we'll go slow through the class so that you can be very mindful of where your knee tracks and how, where you're grounding. So I'm going to sit in a pose called Virasana. This is probably one of really good poses for the knees, but not everybody can get into it. And I'm going to show something else. So if Virasana is not in your practice, how can you sit? So I've got my belt and I'm going to fold it up and make it nice and firm so that I could sit in Sukhasana, easy cross-legged position. But what if that bothers me at the knees? And sometimes it does. I said earlier at the class that my right knee will bother me at times, right on the inner side. So I want to extend. I'm using my right leg. It probably looks like my left one to you, but I'm going to wedge the belt, the folded belt between my knee and thigh and calf. And then that creates space. Now at home, you could use a rolled up washcloth behind the back of the knee to put a little space there in the joint. Okay, so I think I'll just center like this in case there's somebody else that chooses to center this way as well. I'm gonna go ahead and take my glasses off. Okay, so draw the flesh away from your sitting bones. Flex your toes in. You can allow your eyes to close or drop your gaze towards the floor. And begin to draw your attention inward, away from the list of to-dos. I must go do this. I must go do that. I must get on my yoga mat. So as you ground into the buttock bones, lift the bottom of your belly. Equally lift the sides of the waist as you lift your breastbone. Broaden across your collarbones and release your shoulder blades down. Let's take one more breath. And then lift your palms together in front of your heart center and let's set an intention for our practice. So choose one that suits your body's needs today and one that can possibly carry over into everyday life. Ask yourself, what do I need today from my practice? What do I need today in my life? Set that intention. And with your exhalation, slowly bow head to heart. And then release your hands down and gently open your eyes and lift your gaze. So I'm going to switch the cross of my legs now, just so that I don't get in a habit of crossing them in a particular way all the time. And then let's take the arms down by your sides. As you inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. Interlace your palms, lift your palms upward. So get nice and tall through the spine. Make sure the sides of the waist are equally lifting. Bow chin to chest. Separate your arms out to the sides and down. Slowly lift your gaze. Let's take a gentle twist to your left. So my left fingertips are pressing into the floor. Left fingertips are hooking over the knee. And I rotate as I exhale. Now we have a tendency to round here. So lift your collarbones up, broaden across your chest. And then on your exhalation, spiral back to center. Let's go to the other side. Right fingertips behind you, curl your left fingers over the knee. Inhale, lift up. As you exhale, gently rotate to your right. So a good time to practice Svadhyaya here is ask yourself questions like, oh, is my rotation to my right a little more than the rotation to my left, or vice versa? And then now let's spiral the torso back to center. I'm going to take the belt out from underneath my legs. I come down off of my block and just sit with my legs extended forward in staff pose. So we did just a moment ago, but let's practice it again. Use your fingertips to press down, lift your chest. Flex your feet in, lengthen out through the back of your legs as if to extend and touch the other wall of your room with your heels. Contract your quadriceps and press your thigh bones down. Watch them, make sure your kneecaps are lifting, and then release. And then contract and squeeze, press down. And release, contract and squeeze, press down. Let's do 3 more. And release. So I'm going to elevate back up onto my block so that I have a little more height for my knees to drop towards the mat in Baddha Konasana. So again, if my knee was bothering me, it's not, but if it was, I could put that belt there just to create space. So sometimes the issue comes from the tibia, or it could come from the tibia or femur. And so I could pull down to see if that created a little better space, or I could pull up to see if that created more space for the knee joint. Sometimes you just have to play around with it and see which one works best for your body. I know when I was having more issues here, pulling up and back created more space in my joint. So I'm going to press my feet together, contract the back of your legs towards each other, lengthen your inner groin to your knees and your knees out, thigh bones down, lift the bottom of the belly, lift your chest up. And then spin your feet so that the feet begin to open up. You might notice, more sensation in the inner thighs. So let's close the feet, support the outer legs, draw them up, and extend your legs out to straight. So I'm going to set my belt off to the side. So while in Dandasana, let's separate the feet a little bit and work with plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, and ankle rolls. So as I flex my feet in towards my shin, toes to shin, that's dorsiflexion. And then if I press my toes forward, foot forward, plantar flexion. So let's go back and forth. Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Let's do 3 more. And then let's move with ankle roll. So let's go in one direction 3 times, and then 3 times in the opposite direction. And then we'll look at this again when we are in Supta Padangusthasana, big toe pose 1. So I want you to come down onto your mat. I'm just going to check tightness in the hips, because the hips, I said earlier, can create issues within the knee as well. So a lot of our practice will be to help loosen up the hips. But if you recline onto your mat, extend the legs forward, and then just lift your head up, step your feet a little bit wider, and then rock your feet in, and notice where you feel maybe one foot sticks up more than the other. You have more internal rotation on one side. So just be aware of that, and then just bring the feet back to neutral. And then take a breath in, and as you exhale, just rock your right foot in towards your midline. Notice what you feel, if there's some tension, tightness in that area, and then bring it back to center. And then do the left. And how do they differ? So and just in my body, as I turn my right leg in, I almost feel as if my left leg wants to help. So left leg draws in, right leg in, left leg in. Now I bring my legs back into neutral a little bit more, and let's spin it. Let's turn them out to the side. How do they drop out? Bring the legs in. So right leg out, left leg out. Right leg out, left leg out. Right leg out, left leg out. And which is easier for you? So I want you to go back to the hardest. So drawing right leg in, left leg in. That's the harder one for me. But maybe turning your legs out is harder for you. So you're going to work whichever one is the most difficult. Trying to create some range of motion in there. Let's do one more on each side. And then bring the legs back in. So let's just do a little movement. Sweep your arms up and overhead. As you exhale, draw your right knee to your chest, plug it in. Now with this left leg, it has to be active. So squeeze the quadriceps to the bone, press your thigh bone down, keep your foot flexed in. Notice if your heel turns out, nay, nay. Inhale the arms overhead, leg out. Exhale, left knee to chest. Keep your right thigh muscles engaged, right thigh bone pressing down, right heel grounding. Inhale, arms overhead, leg out. Let's do the right leg, left leg. right leg, left leg. Now, if your back bothers you today, bend your knees, and let's practice from bent knees. As you exhale, float your knees in. As you inhale, float feet to floor. As you exhale, both knees in. Exhale, feet to floor. Exhale in. Inhale, feet to floor. Now you continue, or you can do legs out to straight, but the knees must come in together. As you exhale, both knees into the chest. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, both knees to chest. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, both knees to chest. Extend the legs out. Flow your arms down by your sides. Now, I gotta come up and find my belt. I should have told you to have yours close by. You can use your yoga belt. You can use a tie. So we're going to start with our right leg. Keep your left knee bent for now. Draw your right foot up into your belt. Now, contract the right quadricep as you lift up through the back side of the heel. Flex your toes in. And then maybe, just maybe, you slide your left leg out. Contract the quadriceps of your left thigh. Press the thigh bone down as you push out through your left foot. Keep the bottom of your belly lifted. So we're actually working with the first 3 hip openers of Adil Paklivatov's hip opening series. So our breath and our attention should be along the back side of the leg. Now, I'm going to bend my left knee and take my belt off of my foot for now. And I want you to begin slow ankle rotations in one direction with the leg lifted. And then reverse that. And notice how this may differ than when we were doing it seated earlier. Now, plantar flexion by flexing the foot in, dorsiflexion. Plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. Where do you feel it? Plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, and then float the foot to the floor. Let's do the left leg. Left leg draws in, take the foot up. Keep your right knee bent. Okay. Contract your quadriceps of your left leg as you lift up the back side of the heel, inner and outer heel. Flex your toes in towards your shin. And then maybe slide your right leg out. But if you slide it out, contract the quadriceps, press your thigh bone down as you push out through your right foot. Lift the bottom of the belly, and your breath and your awareness go into the back of your left leg. Now I'm going to take the belt off my foot and begin to make my ankle rotations in one direction about 3 times and then reverse it. And then dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Let's do one more for good measures. And then float the foot to the floor. Let's go back to the right leg. Put the belt around the right heel now. Hold both of the belts in your right hand and slide your left leg out to straight. Now I want you to use your left hand onto your left thigh to help hold it down. And then take a breath, and as you exhale, take your right leg to the right. Oh, yes. So now we're using the right buttocks as a fulcrum. You can drop your tricep towards the floor to give you a little more support. And I want you to push. push your right foot away from your left inner hip. Keep your quadriceps engaged of both legs. Keep your left thigh bone pressing down and in, and lift the bottom of the belly. Right quadriceps are engaged, but you're lengthening the inner groin to the heel. Getting the adductors that will affect movement in the hip as well, or affect the leg moving in the hip. And then with the exhale, bring the leg up to center, bend the knee, and let's extend that leg out and feel. So rebend knees, draw your left leg in, put the belt around the heel mound, put the belts in your left hand, extend your right leg out. As you exhale, take your leg to the left. My block is there to catch me. Okay. So again, move your left foot away from the inside right hip. Contract your right quadriceps, press them down as you push out through your foot. And then push your left foot towards the wall. Or away from your pelvis, I should say. Lift the bottom of the belly and direct your breath into your inner thighs. As you exhale, float your leg back up to center. Bend the knee, lower down. Take a moment to feel. Now let's go to the other side. We'll bring the right leg back up again. And this time we put the belts in your left hand. Okay? Left leg goes out straight. Now with your exhale, you're going to move. Now I hooked my thumb in there. We've worked on that all this week. I'm going to move my right foot in line with my left shoulder. And then I want you to pivot the foot so that the big toe turns down towards the shoulder. And you get this lovely opening all along the outer seam of the leg. Now level the foot, bring the leg back to center, bend the bottom knee, release the top leg. So let's go the other side. Left leg goes into the belt. Left foot rather. Belt goes in your right hand. Right leg extends out to straight. My L shape on my left hand, I'm going to put my hip here to keep it from hiking up. Move the left big toes in line with your right shoulder. So get that sensation first of what that feels like in the body, and then you spin the toes down towards the shoulder as you put your outer foot up into the belt and get that opening along the outer seam of the leg. Level your foot. Bring your leg back to center. Bend the bottom knee. Release the belt. Okay. So now let's roll over to your side. I've got to come up and get my tennis ball. If yours is handy, you won't have to do any moving around, but I didn't quite have mine ready for me. So the tennis ball is going to go in the rump. And I'll show two ways in which you can do it. You want to find a tender spot, not one that takes your breath away, and just kind of hang out there. So working on these outer hips. So one way is to cross the right ankle over the left knee, as if for eye of the needle, and then you can place the tennis ball under the cheek. And you can just sink down on it and wait for sensation to ease. And then you might even like to rock the hips. Whew, tender. So you're in control here. So if you drop more of the buttocks down onto the block, the more tender it's going to be. So you get to decide how intense you want this to be for you today. And I'm gently rocking from side to side here. Okay. Now, the other way is just to place the ball in the buttocks, the belly of the buttocks, and then I want to drop my knees over to the side. And then I could just gently rock from side to side. Both can be intense. You can do it for several rounds of breaths. And then you can just lift your hips up, take the ball out, and feel the difference between your two sides. I feel like my left side is screaming at me to do it. So I'm going to cross my left foot over and lift my hips up. Set the ball in. I can either just drop and hold static pressure, or I can gently massage. I can reposition the ball in several different places. Now I'm having to do less pressure of dropping my hips down on this side for today. Lots of little tender places in there for me. And then I want to let the hips come back down, release the foot. Okay, so I'm going to roll over to my side, and I'm going to come onto the belly. This time, still keeping my tennis ball. I'm going to put the tennis ball right at the top of the thigh muscle. And I can just gently rock side to side, all around the top of that hip. So I'm on the muscle. And you may find somewhere and just sink the pressure. And now let's place it to the other side. So I'm going to lift up and slide the ball to the other side, and then just play around with it a little bit. Where do you find a little extra sensation that you didn't even know you had? Now I'm going to bring my hands, come up onto my hands, and then just rock my hips back and into a child's pose. Oh, that feels so good. I'm going to bring my hands back up underneath the shoulders. So I have my pool noodle now, and I'm going to gently work on the IT band for my body. So where I put the roller is more between the top of the hip and what's called the greater trochanter. So that's the top of the thigh bone there on the outside. And I've got my cheek on it. So I can bring one foot forward so I can rock forward and then rock back and rock forward and then rock back. So I'm just doing it gently. I don't have to pour all of my body weight on there. And then I'm going to move the roll down. And I can rock forward and I can rock back. Now, I'm in control of how much tension I put there. I'm going to roll it down and rock forward and rock back. Now I'm going to go just above my knee, not on the joint, and rock back and forth 3 times. Now I could roll it if I wanted to. I like the gentle rocking back and forth. I feel like I'm a little more in control with that one. You choose. So now I want to position the left cheek, the space between the hip and the trochanter. So the trochanter is this bony part here. Okay? So we'll bring one foot forward. I'll just gently rock forward and back, and forward and back, forward and back. Now I want to lift up and move it below the trochanter this time. Again, I'm in control. Rock forward, rock back. Rock forward, rock back. Rock forward, rock back. Move it down a little bit. You're going to rock forward, rock back, get in the middle part of the thigh. Then move it down one more time. Rock forward, rock back. Nice. Okay, so now I want us to target more of the cheek, and then we'll do the front thigh. So I've set myself up onto my roller. And you can get these at the dollar store for a little of nothing. I think these came from Walmart. So I'm going to position my knees to the left. You could go to the right. My hands are behind me, and I'm just going to roll up and then back towards the back of my pelvis. So get more of the buttocks, loosening up all of that. This actually feels better to my cheeks than that tennis ball did. So you could do 3, you could do 6, you could do 9 rolls, whatever works for you today. And then I'm going to come up and switch to the other side. So rolling towards the back pelvis and then away from the back pelvis. Towards the back pelvis, away from the back pelvis. Towards the back pelvis, away from the back pelvis. Now, we did the opening for our hamstrings, so I won't roll the hamstrings, but I do want to roll the front of the thighs a little bit. So I'm going to come down and position the tops of my thighs on the roll, and then pull myself forward towards the knees, and then rock back, and then pull towards the knees. I'll miss you for a little bit. You can engage the core if you need to. Yes. And then you can even turn the legs out just a little bit and roll forward, and you get more towards the medial part of the leg. So nice. So just a couple of rolls. Now we're going to put the roller towards the end of my mat and target the calf tissue. So I don't want it right behind the knee. I want it below the knee. So the hamstrings will come in and attach down below. And then I'm going to cross one ankle over. That might be too much for you, and you just gently rock your knees back and forth. I get just as much with one. I want to move it down a couple of inches and then rock. Woo! So we've worked above the knee, now we're working below the knee to stretch and open, create some space and tissue, release some of that stress and tension so that the thigh bone moves a little more freely in the hip socket. Now I hope you've noticed I've moved this down a little bit at a time, and I'll get it almost down towards the Achilles tendon and rock. And then let's bring it back up towards the back of the left knee. You can cross that leg over if you need to. You don't necessarily have to. Keep it out to the side. You can rock. So this is my more tender side. So this is when I can't get a massage. They've shut us down. So I have to learn to massage myself. Release it with a foam roller. Okay, so I'll roll it down again about the middle of the calf. Gently rock. Woo! And then one more time. Gently rock. Okay. Now, you're going to work your way all the way down to the Achilles tendon. So now I'm going to set this off to the side and bring the chair into the practice. Let me pull my mat back just a little bit here. So, some folks' knees prevent them from lunging with the legs on the floor, so I'll show a couple of variations that you could do from standing. One, to get the hip flexors of the left leg, if you step your, step your left foot forward towards the chair, so this not only gets my hip flexors, it gets my calf tissue as well. So I want to stack my front knee over top of the ankle. I could turn my heel out and then lunge slightly forward. So this might work for some of you. Some of you might need to take the foot more towards the outside of the chair and then repeat your lunge, so it's going to get into the front part of the thigh. You could always push down to your chair to lift your chest to get a little more sensation. And then we would straighten the leg and step back. So start off easy, left foot forward, right leg is back, push your back heel into the floor. I feel it here and I haven't even turned the leg out. So now I can pick up my heel and pivot to the side and lunge. Or if I felt like I needed a little more, I could step my foot more towards the outside of the chair and lunge. Push your hands down into the chair to lift your chest up. And then slowly straighten the legs, step forward. So now I'm going to sit on the chair. So sometimes I think these can be a little more intense. Sometimes I think folks think that yoga with a chair is wimpy. Oh, no. So I'm going to position my right thigh bone on the chair and my left knee is up against the back of the chair. I want to do more of what's called a proposal lunge. So the top of the foot can be towards the floor. I like the toes tucked under so I can really focus on lengthening the knee towards the floor, and then inhale, lift your arms up and overhead. One arm holds the chair. Okay. So more like the proposal. We'll hold it for another breath, and then we'll lower the arm down. And then let's pivot and align the left knee up against the chair. Left thigh bone is flush to the seat. Drop your right knee towards the floor. Keep your right toes tucked under. And then as you inhale, sweep your arm up. So you're moving the thigh bone down towards the floor and away from the fingertips. So if knees are cranky, this is the way you would practice. And then come down. So I'm going to show another variation just in case your knees are fine as far as coming down onto a blanket. So I'm going to face you this time for this one here. So I start with knees bent, and we'll keep the right knee down but step the right foot forward. Now, if you look at my body, I'm kind of hiked here on the left side, so I have to really work with that to drop the hip down so that my waist, hip points stay pretty close to level. Knee over ankle, knee directly underneath the hip. Okay? Now, I want to lengthen my thigh bone down as I lift the bottom of the belly up and lift the right arm up. So you could hold anywhere from 6 to 9 breaths. Just being aware of when you allow that left hip to hike up, or you forget to lift the bottom of the belly, and then lower the arm down. We'll switch legs. So left knee and shin are to the floor, right foot comes up, L shape of right hand. I should be marrying you, but I messed it up. So drop your hip down, drop your right hip down, and then sweep your left arm up, okay? So now lengthen the thigh bone towards the floor as you lift the fingertips up and away. And then lower arm down and switch legs. So I'll show this on the floor first, and then I'll show it with the chair. Okay. So I have my blocks on the tallest height so I can keep my torso upright and not rounding. So on a step, I'll step my right foot forward, and then I want to wedge my back knee towards the back end of my mat. And I'll slide my blocks closer to being underneath the shoulders. Now you can keep your toes tucked. I get a big opening that way as well. I'm gonna push my fingertips into the blocks and lift my chest so that the front of the hip begins to open. Now my left knee, if I'm not careful, is my left knee, be your right, wants to shift out to the side. That's a no-no. So keep it directly over top of the ankle. Don't let it shift to the side. And then you can release the top foot and take the leg back. Let's do the right side. Be your left side, my right. So I have my knee over ankle. And I tuck the back toes under and then drop the pelvis towards the floor. Push down into my blocks to lift the torso up. And feel the opening on the left side of your hip. And I even get a little adductor action going on there. And then let's straighten the leg. Let's bring your right foot forward again. And this time, with the back knee down, tuck the toes under, lift your hips up. Try not to let the hips pop up. Lift the knee up off the floor, that's what I should say. And you push your heel, back heel, away from the front knee. And then draw your right hip, inner hip, towards your inner left knee. And then turn your heel out to the side and lunge forward. And then come back. Drop the knee down, wag the leg in a little bit to the midline of the mat, and then lunge the pelvis forward. And then tuck the toes under, lift up, bring the knee back down. Switch legs. Bring your left leg forward. Lunge your right leg back. Now, tuck the back toes under, lift your knee off the floor, keep your hips low. Move your right heel away from your inner left knee. Move your inner right hip towards your inner knee. Now, pivot the foot towards the floor, drop the hips a little. Woo! And then drop the knee down towards the floor, wag the tail of the foot in, lunge the pelvis slightly forward. And then slowly rock your hips back. Now, I'm going to show how you do this from a chair. Not as much intensity. It can be intense, but we don't have to rock the knees anytime. So I want to start with my right leg up against the chair again, and then see if I can wiggle my back leg. Try to keep the foot in line, the back toes in line with the front heel. And I've got the chair to help me lift. Okay, so push the back heel away from the chair. You can always hold on to the back seat and lift that arm. And then lower the arm down. Bring the back leg in. Switch. So step your right leg back. Notice opening here in the front body. My back knee wants to bend. No. And then sweep that right arm up and away from the back heel. And then float the hand down, bring the leg in. So you have several different ways to practice some lunges to create a little freedom there in the hip joint. So now let's look at Trikonasana and Virabhadrasana 2. And I want to turn my mat sideways for these particular two poses so that you can see what the knee is supposed to do from the front. This is where I was talking about the practice of Svadhyaya, self-study. Where does my weight fall in my foot? Or am I grounding my big toe down? So I'm going to use 2 of my blocks today. Just one on the lower height, one on the taller height. I'm going to position my left heel towards the wall and then spin my right leg out. Okay? So this is where we'll start with the back foot. The back foot has a tendency to let that arch fall in towards the floor, and then that makes my knee fall in towards the floor. So I want to be pushing towards the outer back edge of my heel, but yet still into my big toe mound so that the arch lifts. Now, front leg. When we bring the body over, sometimes people's knees want to rock in towards the midline, and that's a no-no. So what I like to tell my students is, sorry about the legs, when they come into their Trikonasana pose, triangle pose, the 4 corners of their knees need to line up with the second and third toe. But this happens when they come into it, so tight inner thighs. So how do I counter that with students? I ask them to micro bend their knee, and then they hold on to the fleshy part of the thigh and spin the thigh bone in its socket externally, and then squeeze the thigh muscles to the bone to straighten their leg. So now the 4 corners of the knee line up with the second and third toe. But what I caught myself doing was rolling towards my outer heel. And I have to counter that by pressing the big toe mound down. Okay, so let's come up. Bring your arms up shoulder level. Extend out and over. Bring your hand down onto the block. Bring your top hand onto your hip. And now look down at that knee. What's it doing? Where is it tracking? Okay? Now squeeze your thigh muscles to the bone so you lift the kneecap upward towards the pelvis. Lift and lengthen your spine. Spin your left ribs back, right ribs forward, and then add the arm. Gaze can be directly forward or gaze can be towards the floor. Now if you're in the pose correctly, there should be no pain in the knee. Now how we're going to come out safely, especially if we have knee issues. Bring your top hand down. Come up onto your fingertips that's on the block. Micro bend your front knee. Push into the floor with your heel and up you come. Turn your feet forward. Step it together. Now let's try it to the other side. So I got to move the blocks to the other side. Bring your right heel towards the wall. Angle your toes in. Okay. Now look at your back heel. What's it doing? Is your inner arch collapsing towards the floor? If it is, your knee's going to be dropping in towards the floor. And another thing that I should have said earlier is bunions also create knee issues. So, not that that's going to change anything here other than really making sure that your front leg is externally rotated. So the back leg is slightly internally rotated. Push into your outer back heel, but still ground the big toe mound and lift your arch away from the floor. Okay? So now I'm going to draw these pants leg up so you can see that kneecap there. Now, back hand is on the wall. Ground your feet, firm your thighs, lift your belly, and as you exhale, extend over the front leg, find your block. Look down at your kneecap. Where is it tracking? Okay, so how are you distributing the weight in the foot? Is the weight in the inner heel and outer heel, big toe mound, little toe mound equal? Now squeeze your quadriceps to the bone. Spin your right ribs back, left ribs forward. Add the top arm. Then to come out, bring your top hand to your hip. Turn your gaze down, micro bend your knee, pour weight to that front foot and back leg, and inhale, up you come. Turn your feet forward, step together. So Virabhadrasana 2, and we'll look at Utkatasana. We did it the other day with the block between the legs. We'll do it the same way again today. So bring your right heel to the wall, left leg out. So front heel, back arch, hand to wall. Watch where your knee tracks, okay? So press your feet down, firm your thighs, lift your belly. As you exhale, watch where your knee tracks when you bend the knee. So the four corners of your knee should cover the last four toes, so that the only toe you see when you look down is the big toe. Push into your outer back heel. Lift the inner arch up and away from the floor. If the arch of the front foot is collapsing, lift the toes. Bring your arms up shoulder level. You'd hold it 3, 6, 9 breaths, whatever your body allows. Just make sure that the knee and the ankle are stacked over top of each other. Don't have it behind the knee. And then slowly straighten the legs. Turn your feet forward. Step your feet together. And let's spin to the other side. So right heel goes to the wall, left leg's gonna go forward, press into the back heel, press into the front foot, big toe mound, lift your thighs, lift your belly, arms up shoulder level, exhale, bend your knee. Now bring your hand to your hip so you can really focus on where your knee is tracking. You should be seeing the big toe only. So if it's here, you can see all toes. Don't just throw it back. Micro bend that knee. Rotate that thigh bone in its socket. Hug the muscles to the bone. Bring the torso back upright. Warrior 2. Virabhadrasana 2. Inhale, straighten your front leg. Turn your feet forward. Step them together. So in a video yesterday, or day before yesterday, seems like forever, I offered a Utkatasana at the wall with the block between the legs, and we'll do that again today. We'll only do 3, but I talked about how if our legs were not strong, then all the energy of the day dumped into the low back, and the legs help to support the spine against gravity. So I have my feet about a foot away from the wall, and I want to place the block between the knee joint itself, okay? Now my feet are aligned like the outer edges of my mat. With the exhale, I want to bend the knees and sink the hips a little bit. Now, press the feet down, hug inner thighs and inner knees to blocks. That's to strengthen the inner thigh. Lift your belly, press your back pelvis to the wall, shoulders to the wall. You'd hold for probably 3, 6 breaths, whatever works for your body today, and then press your feet into the floor and rise up. And then squeeze the block, come down, press the feet into the floor, hug inner thighs and knees to block, back pelvis towards the wall, lift your chest, breathe. And lift up. One more. Exhale, bend the knees. Squeeze the feet to the floor. Press the feet to the floor. Hug the inner thighs to the block. Back pelvis towards the wall. And then slowly come up. So just know that there are many things that can be done to help our knees. Main thing is practice, practice, practice. So be sure to take your Shavasana, but for sake of time today, I'm just going to go ahead and end with a closing. So bring your hands together in front of your heart center. Take a moment of gratitude for the feet and ankles and knees and hips, all of the parts of the body, for they help us every day and we take those for granted. So thank you, body. Thank you, yogis, for joining me today. Namaste.